to Chaotic Risk TV. My name is Jason JROCK Houston, and I'm your host today for the Big Bang Review Show. This is a new thing we're going to be doing where we're taking a look at some new releases, such as this. This is going to be the one we're talking about today, Paul Gilbert's Dio Album. Now, here's going to be the fun thing about the Big Bang Review Show. We're going to have several episodes of this because we want to highlight this album, but I tell you, just getting into part one of today's show, we're not going to really talk much about the album itself because, first of all, I want to take a look at who is Paul Gilbert. Talk a little bit about his career. Now, in talking about the Dio album, I'll tell you, like many of you, I'm a huge, longtime Ronnie James Dio fan. So when I heard about Paul was going to be releasing this album, I was very excited. I mean, who the hell isn't a Ronnie James Dio fan? I mean, let's be honest. I love everything he's done, from Rainbow to Sabbath to, of course, his own Dio band. I got to tell you, my holy grail though for Ronnie James Dio has got to be, of course, Heaven and Hell. I mean, first song I ever heard off of Heaven and Hell was Neon Nights, and so that song, which is also featured on Paul Gilbert's The Dio album, will always have a very special place in my heart. And so, again, I thought in part one of the Big Bang review show we're doing on Paul Gilbert's Dio album, let's look at who is Paul Gilbert. Okay, now, of course, many of us know Paul Gilbert from the bands Racer X and Mr. Big. Now, Racer X and Mr. Big could not be any more different from each other. I mean, they're both very much guitar-oriented bands, but we're going to get into it now. Paul Gilbert is a hard rock guitarist who first found fame as the guitarist in Racer X. Okay, and here's what you need to know about Racer X. Racer X was a very guitar-oriented band, I should say, that was centered around. It was a lot centered around the guitar playing of Paul Gilbert, and the band was formed in Los Angeles in 1985, and interestingly enough, like a year later, they added Bruce Bollier as a second guitar player of the band, and that is noteworthy for the simple fact that he was a student of Paul Gilbert's at GIT, and so thank you, Paul Gilbert, for that, for bringing your student Bruce Bollier into Racer X, because I think when they started having two guitar players in the band, it gave the band a very a different sound. Now, Paul Gilbert really first started kind of rise to fame at the age of 15. And in fact, talking about Paul Gilbert at the age of 15, he was really really ballsy. He had the he had the gonads, as they say, to write a letter to Mike Varney, who was a CEO of Shrapnel Records. And as y'all know, if you follow any of these guitar players from the the 80s rock scene, these shred type of guitar players, Shrapnel was a label where many of these guitar players went. So Paul Gilbert was well aware of who Mike Varney was, and he wrote a letter to Mike Varney stating an interest that he wanted to see if Varney could help him place him as a guitar player in Ozzy Osbourne's solo band. And of course, Mike Varney was smart enough to know, well, as good as this kid is, he's only 15 years old. And so Ozzy Osbourne's not going to hire this kid for so many reasons. I mean, again, as gifted as he might have been, there's all kinds of legal things that come with hiring a minor, So, again, it didn't quite happen then. But Racer X was a band where people really first started to take notice of Paul Gilbert. And there were songs that these solos, such as Technical Difficulties and Frenzy, that really made people take notice of who Paul Gilbert was. And so what they did is, you take something like Technical Difficulties. I took the time to listen to this. If you want to listen to the song, you can go on YouTube, type in Technical Difficulties, Paul Gilbert, and it will come up. And it shows you that while Paul Gilbert is one of those guitar players that can kind of, shred with the best of them, he's also a very talented songwriter. I mean, this is a song where he kind of shows what he can do shred-wise, and the song's got a little bit of a soul, a little bit of heart to it. It's not all about playing as fast as you can. But initially, that is why people were taking note of Paul Gilbert, just because of just how fast he could play, you know. So again, when I heard that he was putting out this Dio album, I thought, wow. And what's really impressive about the album is none of the tracks are feature a vocal. You know, on some of Paul Gilbert's past solo albums, he's done some vocals. So initially, when I heard about the album, I thought maybe he was gonna you know, see if he could really pay tribute to Ronnie and put out, you know, carbon copies of the songs with him doing the vocal, or even maybe having other people come in and do the vocal. But that's not what this is. Again, the Dio album is Paul, like many of us, is a huge Ronnie James Dio fan. He's gone on record as saying that. But what he does is, which kind of gives new life to these songs, is he replaces where Ronnie's vocal would be in the song with his guitar parts. And it really gives kind of a new life to these songs. Not that they needed a new life, because hey, you really can't go wrong, as we know, with Ronnie James Dio, but it's just kind of a different way he's interpreting the songs, a different way for fans to hear these songs. And you don't think he's chopping the songs up too much. He does a great job of paying tribute to Ronnie James Dio, Paul Gilbert way. And because Paul Gilbert is a guitar player, and he's replacing the vocals that you know, are in the songs with his guitar parts, it's also a great way to pay tribute to these guitar players. And when I reference these guitar players, I'm also, of course, referring to Tony Iommi, the riff master of metal. He is the guy that people have given credit to creating that metal sound. So, of course, when you're going to cover some Sabbath, it's also just as much a tribute to a riff master, Tony Iommi, as it is to Ronnie James Dio. And then, of course, in covering some of the Rainbow stuff, like Man on the Silver Mountain, pays great tribute to the guitar god Richie Blackmore, you know. And then, of course, Vivian Campbell, he pays tribute to on here. So it's a great way of Paul Gilbert showing, you know, who he is and his love for all things Ronnie James Dio. And so, again, I want to thank you all for joining us for part one of our look at the Dio album by Paul Gilbert. I just can't say great job to Mr. Gilbert there, because man, I think a lot of people are talking about this album, you know, because there's a real need for an album like this too. The fact that Ronnie James Dio is no longer among us, you know. His legacy lives on, his legend lives on, and those are two things that will never die. And got to pay a huge thanks for that, not just because of Ronnie's talent as a singer and a songwriter, but you know, his wife and manager, Wendy Dio, she's keeping his legacy alive. You know, we have the movie coming out on DVD in a few, sometime in September, I believe. So that's something to look forward to. So thank Wendy Dio for keeping Ronnie's memory and his legacy alive. And I think there's nobody better to do it. And Paul Gilbert, though, he just does an amazing rendition of all these classic Dio songs. And of course, when I say Dio, I think a lot of us think of, you know, of all these songs really as Dio songs. I mean, and we're talking about, like I said, stuff he did with Rainbow, stuff he did with Sabbath, stuff he did with his own band Dio, but somehow it is all Dio, if you know what I mean. So this was fun. This is the first episode of our new Big Bang review show. And I think each episode we do is going to be a little different. But again, this is just kind of introduction to, this is part one of our look at Paul Gilbert's Dio album. So please come back, and there will be more episodes in talking about this, because I tell you, to really take a good look at Paul Gilbert's Dio album, cannot just do it one episode. So I think there's going to be at least 4 of these. And thank you so much for checking this out. Let us know what you think, and we'll see you again real soon. Bye for now.